Intel didn't just dominate technology, it dictated reality. If a computer mattered, Intel decided how it worked. Governments trusted it, corporations standardized on it, software was built around it. Then, the rules changed. The future arrived quietly, not as a threat but as a shift. Phones replaced PCs, efficiency beat raw power, ARM chips spread everywhere, lighter, cooler, mobile first. Intel saw the data, ran the models, held the meetings, and chose not to move. They believed performance would always win. That mobility was temporary, that the world would return to them. It wasn't arrogance, it was confidence built on decades of being right. And for a moment, it worked. Profits stayed high, the stock held, the company felt safe. That's why this isn't a story about a bad decision, it's about something more dangerous, a moment when the market moved forward and Intel stayed still. That pause didn't look like failure. It looked like control. But it quietly started a countdown Intel couldn't stop. To understand the cost of that pause, you have to remember who Intel used to be. This wasn't just a company, it was infrastructure. If a business bought computers, it bought Intel. If a government built systems, they were built on Intel. Software was optimized for Intel. Engineers designed for Intel. Even competitors oriented themselves around Intel because the market had already chosen a side. The Intel Inside campaign wasn't advertising, it was a trust mark. It said one thing: this is safe, this is stable, this is the future. For decades, Intel set the upgrade rhythm. When a new chip launched, the world adjusted. Manufacturers waited, developers adapted, customers paid more, and didn't ask questions. This was absolute leadership. Not aggressive, not loud, systemic. And that's exactly why Intel started to believe it would last forever. When you've been the standard for too long, you stop seeing the standard as something external. You start believing the standard is you. And in that moment, every real signal starts to look like noise. The turning point didn't come with a crisis, it came with a choice. As smartphones exploded, a different architecture started to win. ARM wasn't faster, it wasn't more powerful, it was efficient, it ran cooler, it saved battery. And in a mobile world, that mattered more than benchmarks. Intel saw this early. They tested ARM. They studied licensing models. They debated entering mobile seriously. And then they stepped back. ARM didn't fit Intel's business. Lower margins, less control. No guaranteed dominance. x86 had built the empire, and x86 still printed money. So Intel optimized for what they knew. They protected the core. They treated mobile as secondary, a niche, something the market would outgrow. But the market didn't wait. Phones became computers, laptops followed. Power efficiency stopped being a feature and became the requirement. By the time Intel realized the shift wasn't temporary, the ecosystem had already formed without them. Developers had moved, partners had committed, standards had been set. Intel didn't miss the trend. They made a conscious decision not to follow it. And that decision quietly closed a door they would never fully reopen. The consequences didn't hit all at once, they arrived quietly. Intel tried to enter mobile late, and it showed. The Atom processors were inefficient, modems lagged behind competitors, integration was weak, margins were thin. To stay relevant, Intel did something unprecedented. They paid manufacturers to use Intel chips. Billions of dollars went out the door just to keep a seat at the table. And it still didn't work. In 2016, Intel made it official. They exited the smartphone processor market entirely. No comeback plan, no gradual transition, just a clean withdrawal. In that moment, Intel didn't just lose phones, they lost influence. Mobile wasn't a side market anymore. It was the center of computing. Phones defined operating systems, apps, user behavior, and the companies building for mobile were shaping the future of everything else. Intel was now outside that loop. While others learned at scale, Intel watched. While ecosystems matured, Intel optimized legacy platforms. The cost wasn't immediate revenue, it was relevance. And once a platform becomes irrelevant, no amount of optimization can bring it back. For years, Apple was one of Intel's most visible partners. Macs ran on Intel chips. Developers optimized for them. Consumers associated performance with that pairing. But behind the scenes, the relationship was fraying. Intel's roadmap kept slipping. Power efficiency lagged. Thermal limits forced compromises Apple hated. Laptops ran hot, batteries drained fast, and Intel couldn't fix it on Apple's timeline. So Apple did what Intel once did to others. They built their own solution. Apple Silicon wasn't a reaction. It was an exit strategy years in the making. In 2020, Apple made it public. Macs would leave Intel entirely, not partially, not gradually, completely. The results were immediate. Faster performance, longer battery life, silent machines, and total control over the stack. For Intel, this wasn't just losing a customer, it was losing proof. Proof that x86 still mattered at the highest level. Apple showed the world something dangerous. You could leave Intel and be better for it. Once that was proven, the ecosystem shifted. Intel was no longer the default, it was just an option. Once Intel lost momentum, the gap didn't stay empty. It filled fast. AMD, written off for years, came back with a different strategy. Fewer promises, faster execution. Chips that delivered performance without excuses. Suddenly, benchmarks flipped. Reviewers noticed. Customers switched. For the first time in decades, Intel wasn't the obvious choice. At the same time, manufacturing leadership slipped away. While others moved to advanced nodes, Intel struggled with delays. Roadmaps missed targets. Launches slipped. Confidence eroded. And then there was NVIDIA. They didn't compete with Intel directly. They went around it. GPUs became the engine of modern computing. AI, data centers, acceleration, workloads Intel wasn't built for. The industry shifted from general-purpose CPUs to specialized silicon. And Intel was late to that shift too. This wasn't a single loss, it was a pattern. Each delay made competitors stronger. Each missed cycle gave the market alternatives. Intel didn't fall behind because others cheated. They fell behind because others moved. And Intel no longer set the pace. By this point, the problem wasn't external, it was internal. Intel wasn't short on talent, it was short on urgency. Decades of dominance had shaped the culture. Processes were optimized for stability, not speed. Decisions required consensus. Risk was treated as a liability. Inside Intel, being wrong was worse than being late. That mindset worked when Intel controlled the market. It failed the moment the market moved faster. Engineers warned about delays, teams flagged bottlenecks, but the organization rewarded predictability over disruption. x86 wasn't just an architecture, it was an identity. Questioning it meant questioning the company itself. So innovation slowed, not because Intel stopped trying, but because it stopped challenging its own assumptions. Competitors experimented in public. Intel experimented in committees. By the time changes were approved, the window had already closed. This wasn't arrogance, it was institutional inertia. And inertia is invisible while you're winning. You only feel it when you try to change direction and realize how hard it is to turn. The next wave didn't arrive quietly. It arrived with urgency. Artificial intelligence rewrote the rules of computing. Training models demanded parallelism, memory bandwidth, and acceleration at scale. CPUs weren't enough anymore. The center of gravity moved. GPUs became the new engine. Software stacks formed around them. Developers optimized for them. Data centers were redesigned because of them. Intel saw the shift. They invested. They acquired. They announced roadmaps. But they never owned the moment. Their AI strategy was fragmented. Too many products, too many pivots, too little focus. While competitors built platforms, Intel shipped parts. While ecosystems formed, Intel chased benchmarks. By the time AI demand exploded, the defaults were already set. If you wanted to train models, there was a clear choice. Intel wasn't it. This wasn't about missing a feature, it was about missing the center. AI didn't just create a new market, it redefined what mattered, and once again, Intel found itself optimizing around a future it didn't define. Facing irrelevance, Intel finally changed posture, not incrementally, structurally. The company admitted what had become obvious. Falling behind wasn't a product problem, it was a manufacturing one. Intel had lost control of the most important lever in the industry. So they made a radical bet. They would rebuild it. Massive investments followed. New fabs, new leadership, a public promise to regain process leadership and open their factories to others. Intel wasn't just trying to catch up anymore. They were trying to become a foundry, competing with companies that had spent decades perfecting that role. It was a bold shift, also a dangerous one. Fabs require scale, trust, and flawless execution. Miss a node and you lose years. Miss twice and customers don't come back. Intel was betting that history, capital, and urgency could compress time, that they could fix a decade of drift in a few cycles. This wasn't a recovery plan. It was a reinvention attempt, and reinventions don't come with guarantees. Intel's story isn't about technology, it's about timing. The company didn't collapse, it didn't implode, it slowly fell out of sync with the world it once led. Every major mistake followed the same pattern. Protect what works, delay what threatens it, optimize what you control, ignore what you don't. That strategy feels rational when you're winning. It feels responsible, even smart, until the environment changes faster than your assumptions. Intel didn't fail because it lacked resources. It failed because success trained it to defend the past instead of invent the future. The hardest decision for any leader isn't choosing what to build next, it's choosing what to let go of while it's still profitable. Markets don't punish arrogance first, they punish hesitation. And by the time hesitation looks like a mistake, the window has already closed. Intel didn't lose the future in one dramatic moment, it lost it one pause at a time. If you strip away the headlines, Intel's decline traces back to one core refusal. Not a single product, not one quarter, a mindset. When computing shifted from desktops to mobile, Intel treated it like a detour instead of a destination. A RM wasn't invisible, it was obvious, it was everywhere. Intel understood the trade-off: less power, more efficiency, lower margins, faster scale, less control, bigger ecosystem, and they rejected it because it threatened the machine that was already working. That's the trap. The most dangerous decisions don't look like decisions, they look like discipline. Stay focused, protect the core, don't chase trends. Those phrases sound responsible until the trend becomes the platform. Intel didn't lose because it chose the wrong future. Intel lost because it chose to defend the old one. And once the world proved you can build the next era without you, through mobile, through Apple Silicon, through AI acceleration, your leverage evaporates. At that point, catching up is no longer strategy, it's recovery. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Markets don't wait for legends, they replace them. Intel built the modern era of computing, then watched the next era form without its permission. Mobile proved efficiency could beat brute force. Apple proved you could leave Intel and improve. AI proved the center of computing could move away from CPUs entirely. None of those shifts were hidden. They were public, measurable, inevitable in hindsight. Intel didn't miss them because it was blind. Intel missed them because it was invested in its margins, its identity, its certainty. And that's why this story matters beyond chips. Every dominant company eventually faces the same moment: protect what pays today or build what wins tomorrow. The trap is thinking you can do both on your schedule. You can't. The window doesn't reopen just because you're ready. When the platform changes, the cost of hesitation is permanent. Intel is still fighting. It may recover, it may even win again. But the era where Intel decided the rules is over, and the next time a company tells you they're staying focused, ask a harder question. Focused on what? The future or the past?